Well, there you have it. So ladies and gents, part of the reason why I wanted to show the video at the beginning, to be honest, there's like a misconception about what cliff diving actually is. You know, some people just get confused. They think I'm talking about base jumping, which is parachuting from cliffs. Some people think I'm talking about cave diving or even scuba diving, but not so, as you can see from the video. Now, some brief information about cliff diving. It essentially derives from the Olympic sport of springboard diving and platform diving, with a few fundamental differences that you may have already noticed. And one of them is that we land feet first as opposed to head first. And the other major difference is the height. So we're diving from 27 to 28 meters. Now that's almost 3 times the height of the Olympic high board. And if you want to gain some perspective and understand what it feels like to be this high, then this next slide will illustrate this very well. This is a good friend of mine, Yves Malord, performing in a diving show in Canada. The pool, mind you, is only 10 meters in diameter and 3 meters deep. So like it's a very small target. And it's a crazy experience. Like the first time I climbed up, just to actually have a look, I mean, I looked down, I thought, dude, you're gonna miss the pool. I mean, that's honestly how it feels. And this brings up another interesting point. I mean, a lot of people say to me, listen, you must have no fear. And I'm saying that's simply not the case. I'm always nervous. I'm always scared before I do these dives. And in fact, I need fear. Fear keeps me focused. And the other thing is, without fear, you don't have the high. You don't have the sense of accomplishment, the sense of achievement. So it's important. Now, the other thing is, look, I'm not a daredevil. I don't go from ground zero to 27 meters and hope for the best. You know, I'm methodical, I'm prepared, I have at least 8 to 10 years of experience in diving and trampolining before I even attempt the sport of cliff diving. So we're not daredevils. This is actually Vienna, Austria, my very first diving show in a place called Gansendorf. And this is an example of working your way to the top. This is how we develop confidence with the height and overcoming our fears. So the ladder here, the interesting thing about it, it has a perch. This little perch can be unlatched, and we move it from 10 meters, for example, work our way up to 12 meters, up to 14 meters, up to 16 meters, up to 18 meters, and so on and so on. And that's the way we develop the confidence with the height. I mean, this principle can be applied to anything, like learning a new sporting skill, you know, starting a business. We have to earn our stripes, and that's how we do it, you know. So my passion became my career. So I was lucky enough with some good competition results that I gained a sponsorship deal, and that opened up a whole world of opportunities in the sense that we could be commissioned to dive off bridges as part of an exhibition, particularly this one, the Stari Mostar Bridge in Bosnia. Then we'd be commissioned to dive in sporting documentaries and competitions. So great way to travel, great lifestyle. Now, ladies and gents, this is where the story begins, and if you're squeamish, well, too bad. I'm going to tell you the story anyway. So in early 2008, I was commissioned to dive off a bridge in central Colombia as part of a music festival. So then we flew into Bogota. Bogota is the capital of Colombia. Then we embarked upon a very long, bumpy drive, 9 hours, to this town called Puerto Gaitán. This is the town we arrived in. And I actually said to my friends, what are we doing here? Like, it just was like a scene out of a movie, this dusty dirt bowl town. And I'm laughing, going, man, why is this music festival here in the middle of nowhere? And they said, I don't know, this is the way it is. So we walked across town, and this is the music festival. Everyone's partying in the water, doing their thing, going crazy. Now, that bridge where the oil tanker is, we'd scheduled to actually build a platform a little bit higher on top of the bridge. But the first thing we always do, is we check the water depth. So we start from one side of the river to the other side, and we found one area that was deep enough. It was only 2.7 meters deep. Now, those other shows that we do are normally 3 meters deep. I have dove into those depths before, but what it means is this: you need to react very quickly and bring your legs up nice and fast or scoop forwards. That's what you need to do, okay? So you have to be very, very, very focused. Normally, in most diving competitions, high diving, it's much deeper, 5 meters, but some exhibitions, we have shallow water, but that was the case here in Colombia. This is an image of the dive, an actual piece of video footage. Now, everything looks fine from the outside. If I was a judge looking at it, dive looks good, but what happened underneath the water was not so good. I sort of remember hitting the water, and it's interesting because I thought, why haven't you reacted? You know, and the minute or the second that I thought that, all of a sudden I was on the bottom. So then all I could feel was this. I'm just crouched down, and I thought, okay, no, everything's okay. Like, that came up fast. Then slowly I started to understand that something wasn't right. You know, I could start to feel the sand on the outside of my shin bone and on the outside of my knee, and I'm like, hang on, what's happened? And I'm just underneath the water processing everything. And all of a sudden I was like, maybe I've snapped my shin bone. And I reached down to kind of find my leg, and it wasn't where I thought it would be. And basically I ended up putting my hand, sliding it down here, and I could feel the lump on my femur, and instantly I knew that my femur had snapped in half. So basically I pushed off with my left leg, coming up through the water now, but then I could feel this leg, this part, the inside, had actually touched this side. So this had actually bent, gone like this, and then twisted around. I know that sounds gruesome, but that was honestly the reality of the situation. Instantly, even in the water, I started thinking, this is awful, because the panic set in the sense that I knew I was in the middle of nowhere. I drove across those dirt roads, and part of it was like four-wheel drive material. For 9 hours, I'm like, no, this can't be the case. This can't be happening. I surfaced to the water. This is actually one of the rescue boats, one of the military/rescue boats. And I came in the water screaming, but no one came to get me because they just thought, you know, that the dive was fine. They're like, well, why is he screaming? I swam side stroke to this boat, grabbed onto the boat, and my friends are like, ¿Qué pasó? ¿Qué pasó? In Spanish, that means what happened? And then I tried to explain to them what happened, but they couldn't understand me. So I had to lift myself level with the water so they could see that my leg was bent at more or less a 45-degree angle. And they were he completely freaked out. He said, okay, pull him out, get him into the boat. So these military guys leant over the boat, put their arms underneath my armpit, and started to pull me back into this military boat, the exact one. But the problem was this. I'm sorry to kind of make you squeamish again, but the leg is still bent and it's dangling down like so. And I went, no, put me back in the water. As an instinctive reaction, as crazy as it sounds, I had to pull my own leg straight. How are you going to, you can't travel with your leg bent. So I was in the water and I grabbed my leg from the left, pulled it straight. You have to understand the bones are like this. So when you pull it straight, then the bones overlap. Now my leg is shorter. So I braced myself, grabbed onto my leg, and I said, let's do it again. Come on. Pick me up, and they dropped me into the boat. And then I just started to think, how am I getting get out of this? I started processing everything. I'm like, I need a helicopter. All of a sudden, Orlando Duque, my good friend, was in the boat, and he looked at me and he said, what happened? And then he looked at my leg, and he's like, Joey, what happened? And I said, my femur has gone. It's snapped in half. And I said, Orlando, please. I was desperate, honestly. This is how it was. I was like, please get me a helicopter. I got to get out of here, dude. Because I didn't want to bleed out, I was very, very scared. He said, no problem, I'm onto it. I'll make some phone calls. He went off. Then I actually got put into an ambulance, went to a medical centre, and that was only a 5-minute drive away. As soon as I got to the medical centre, they said, look, we know your femur's broken. Does anything else hurt? And I said, yes, my ankle, my knee, and something's wrong with my pelvis, I don't know. So they did some x-rays, and this is the first x-ray that showed up. So the femur's completely in half. Everything else appeared to be okay. The next thing that came out of their mouths was this. Listen, we're really sorry, but we don't have any morphine, any pain relief whatsoever. That music festival cleaned us out of every bit of stock that we've got. We had a whole bunch of people injured. The ambulance doesn't even have anything. And so we got some Panadol, and I said, don't even bother. What's that going to do? So I just laid in this medical centre for 3 hours. Now it's dark. And I'm getting frustrated. I'm like, I've got to get out of here. What's going on? Finally, Orlando Duque calls back and he says, listen, we've got some problems. And I said, what's going on? He says, no helicopter pilot, no pilot is going to fly in this area because there are cocaine guerrillas with anti-aircraft guns. They will shoot at anything in the air because they'll think it's the military. And I thought this was like a scene out of a movie. And I said, this can't be happening. He goes, this is the reality of the situation. We have one more option. And he said, the military might be able to fly you out through a different route. Give me half an hour. Calls back in half an hour. And he says, no go. The military is now engaged in a mission against the cocaine guerrillas, and they're in a gunfight. And I was like, okay, let's do this. Let's start the journey. So they strapped me up into the ambulance. To be honest, I became very autocratic, very bossy, because it was a very slow process, even getting me mobilized into the ambulance, and it was just a very frustrating experience, And then I had to brace myself, to be honest, for the worst journey of my life. no morphine, no pain relief. And I basically had to put my arms on the ambulance wall, cross my arm over and hold on to my friend Tonio's hand. For 9 hours, he didn't let go of my hand once. And he braced me. So we went on these bumpy dirt roads. This is the actual road for those 9 hours. And it was a very difficult thing mentally, not just physically, like, because I'm always wondering, like, what's my future going to be? Am I going to walk again? Am I going to dive again, you know? And also, you've got to understand that every time the car's, excuse me, is braking, I can feel the bones cutting into the flesh, back and forth like this, up and down, up and down. Finally, we got to a hospital and we had to change ambulance. And the crazy thing was that they had to pick me up from the spinal board, slid me and dropped me onto the other spinal board. My leg bent again and they had to pull my leg straight again. Second paramedic said to me, have you had any pain relief? And I said, no. And he goes, you just drove from there with no pain relief. And I said, mm-hmm. And I said, can I have some? And he goes, oh yeah, I'll give you some. And I said, please, I'm exhausted, just knock me out. He says, I can't knock you out, but I'll get you real close. I slept the remainder of the way, which is another hour and a half, which is on bitumen, thank God. Got to the hospital, 4 a.m. This is the actual surgeon. And I said, Doc, what do we do? And he goes, look, we can fix it. It's going to take you some time to dive again. And I said, okay, how do we fix it? He goes, we basically either cut you down the side of the leg, open you up, put some screws in. Second option is that we make an incision through your backside, drill through the middle of your bone, and put a long 45 centimeter nail down the middle of your bone. And I was like, really? And I said, Doc, what's the difference? And he said, the nail is a much faster recovery. And I said, I'll have the nail, thanks. And he said, I don't have one. And I'm like, why'd you give me the option? He goes, I can get one, but it's not in the hospital. It's in another hospital, so I've got to order it in. And I said, how long is that going to take? He said, 5 or 6 hours. I said, okay, can I wait that long? He said, yeah, you can wait. 5 hours turned into 30 hours. They couldn't find the right length nail. I'm taller than most Colombians, so they've been scrounging around all the hospitals around Colombia, finally find these nails. And then, so I'm going into surgery 10 p.m. And the surgeon's going through packets of bolts and screws like it's a hardware store, whistling. And I could see he couldn't find stuff. He's like, oh, scratching his head, like, where's this, where's that? And I knew something was wrong, you know, about this. I had a bad feeling before the operation. The anaesthetist put me under. Instantly, the anaesthetist said, something's wrong with this guy. Like, his blood pressure's going up and down, like he's really, really unstable. The surgeon said, like, I just need an hour and a half to fix the leg. Just keep him going, you know. I said, no problem. So this is where it gets really complicated. They lay me on the operating table on my side, okay? They have to make the leg straight. Then they make an incision through the backside, drill through the middle of the marrow, then they take the nail. They don't push it through, they hit it down. So they're both whacking this nail down, right? Hitting it. There's 2 surgeons on either side, whack, 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 whack. And basically it goes halfway down and gets stuck. And he's thinking, why won't it go any further? Let me take it out. I'll put a smaller nail in, a smaller width in, tries to pull it out, won't go. The bone has latched onto the nail, won't go. So then he has to put a T-bar at the back of it. Now he's playing tennis with me. He's backhanding this nail back out like this. Now this is for real. Then he's trying to hit it back in again, hit it back out again. This nail won't go. This is 3 hours of hitting me. 3. And he's like, I can't believe this. I cannot believe this. I know what I have to do to fix this, but I don't want to do it. So this is what he did. Opens my whole leg up, my hip to my knee, opens it up, goes inside with a machine and smashes my femur to pieces. So he broke it, and that big long bone shard there is what he broke. So now he manages to get the new nail down, but that's a lot easier when there's a lot of broken bones, isn't it? So he's pushing it down, puts a screw in the bottom of the knee, puts those 2 wire chicken rings around the broken bones that he put in. Then he wants to put the top locking pin in. You need a pin at the bottom and at the top. Looks at my hip, everything's shifted like this. And he looks inside, my hip snapped off. All the hammering severed the hip joint. You can see the crack line going through here. Like, it just goes on and on and on and on. And then he has to put these 2 hip screws in horizontally to fixate the hip. And I woke up 7.5 hours. This is an operation that lasted 7.5 hours on the operating table screaming. I actually thought I was still being operated on. It was just an absolute nightmare, you know, and in more pain than the ambulance ride and then the initial accident. Like, I was screaming and I was like, what is going on? Like, there's blood everywhere, bandages down the side of my leg. I'm like, there's only supposed to be an incision here, not here. I said, what's gone wrong? And he said, calm down, we had a lot of complications, you're going to be okay. So they put me in the pain room for a day. Then they put me in my hospital room, and all my cliff diving buddies are there, but straight away I'm showing some very strange symptoms. Those are, I'm swelling, I've got 10 kilograms of fluid on me now, I can't urinate. And then they put a catheter in me, and the urine that did come out was the colour of coffee. That's not good. Not good at all. Came back the next day after they ran some blood tests, and he said, listen, you've got kidney failure. And I was completely confused. I was like, what's going on? Like, delirious from the drugs. I'm like, how do you go from having a broken leg to kidney failure? He goes, listen, you had so much damage to your muscles in the ambulance ride and also in surgery that the protein molecules have pulled off the muscles. They're large molecules. They've entered the bloodstream. They block the capillaries of the kidney. Nothing can function. It's blocked. He said, it's very serious. You need to go on dialysis right now, and you need to go to ICU. I didn't realize the severity of the situation because they didn't tell me. They said, listen, call the family. His potassium is now so high, it's attacking his heart, and he could have a cardiac arrest. If he does have a cardiac arrest, we can't defibrillate him. He'll die on the spot. That's it. That's what's going to happen. So they prepared me for some procedures, which was dialysis. So they had to insert a tube inside of here, 2 in and out valves for the dialysis, pushed a line all the way through my vein into my heart, connected me to all the ECG monitors. And basically, I'd lost a lot of blood, so I had 4 units of blood being transfused into my body at the same time, you know, in order to get my hemoglobin up. So very, very, very scary experience. Bogota, in addition, is 2.7 kilometers high. I'm having trouble breathing. So it was a very, very difficult process for me. I couldn't even see while I was in there. It was an absolute nightmare. I believe that probably my fitness was my savior, and my kidney started to function after 2-3 weeks, thank God. So that was a very, very relieving moment, that's for sure. So I spent 4 weeks in the hospital, and then something interesting happened. The doctor, the ICU doctor, my kidney specialist said, I don't want you in the hospital anymore. I don't want you to have an infection. Come to my house. So she took care of me in her own house. And believe me, I never ever forgot the gratitude. I never forgot what she did for me. I'm so grateful. You know, that's, you know, the human spirit is very kind, you know, and that was a wonderful thing. I said to her, I make a promise to you and to myself. I will return to Colombia again and to dive off that same bridge and to revisit you and to thank you. I returned to Australia. 5 operations over 4 years, including a broken ankle. My ankle was broken. They didn't pick that up straight away. So I had to fix my ankle and had to remove a lot of screws. These are the hip screws that came out. Big old bad boys. Now here's a mental note. Never ever do this with anything that comes out of your body after an operation. Don't stick them in your ears. Why? Because I ended up with an ear infection for 2 weeks and I couldn't hear. My physiotherapist found it very, very, very funny. But guess what? It doesn't end here. Then I find out my leg is 3 centimeters shorter. Because of the complications in surgery, my hip joint is at a different angle. The bones have overlapped. It took me 7 months to learn how to walk again. You know, a very painful process. And it's strange because, you know, you sort of walk around, it feels like you're walking around with one shoe on, you know, and then you look in the bathtub going, why does my look shorter? Ran the scans and they said, yep, 3 centimeters shorter. After a year, it was a very difficult decision. I decided to break my leg again and make it longer at the Royal Brisbane Women's Hospital with some very rare technology. And here's a video clip from the documentary Dive Into Fear, which explains the procedure that I undertook.
It's almost 3 centimeters short if you compare one side to the other. So the right side here, much shorter. So the plan is to take out this nail, crack his bone, and insert a new nail.
You have to break your leg first, and then it pulls apart 1 millimeter a day to make your leg longer. Only about 170 people have had this particular operation done and using this kind of technology. So it's very rare. And I did the research and I decided to do it and go for it. And it was scary because I knew that if something went wrong and if I had a bone infection, you can die from bone infections, you can lose your leg.
So yeah, there were some risks. And here's the actual x-ray of the operation that I undertook, and you can see it's some pretty heavy hardware, pretty heavy. Now, I was very scared of the operation, and I sought the advice of a sports psychologist to help deal with this anxiety that I had for the operation. And he also started to talk about visualization to improve body healing. This was very interesting. And he said, listen, there's really good scientific research that backs this up. And he said, you need to do it with discipline, though. You need to do it 6 weeks leading up to the operation and a good 4 to 5 months afterwards. So I followed his advice, and they said to me, look, it's going to take 4 months to learn how to walk again. And then I managed to get it down to 2, 8 months to learn how to skip and hop again. I managed to get it down to 4, in combination with good diet and being managed very well. But the visualization, in my understanding, really did help me. Now, visualization, don't have a lot of time to go into it right now, but it's used for a lot of things, you know, improving performance in sport and in everyday life. So, you know, do some research about it. Okay, 4 years later, 5 operations, you know, a lot of pain, a lot of anguish. I had to learn how to dive again, you know, in addition to learning how to walk again. So it was a very long process. And here's a video clip from the documentary Dive into Fear of my final dive in Colombia. And this really meant everything to me. You know, if this was going to be the last thing I'd do in my life, this was it. You know, this meant so much to me.
It's just 3 seconds, but 3 seconds as long as a lifetime. After the dive into fear, the demons are at rest.
It's funny how 4 years of operations, of ups and downs and emotion, all comes into one point, into 3 seconds. And that was so important for my recovery and for me to move on. Really, this is kind of my last hurrah. That was the dive.
And as I said, that meant everything to me. Absolutely everything. You know, I've revisited all the hospital staff that helped me through the whole process, all of my friends, you know. I relived every single step, you know, all the road, everything, the hospital, and it was an incredibly emotional experience for me, you know, and I'm so proud that I did that. And my message to you is, listen, you know, remember, you have a choice of how you respond to your challenges in life. You really do. You have a choice of everything. Choose the positive path. And the other thing is, persevere. See things through to the end. You know, give it your best shot, and you can be at peace with yourself no matter the outcome. But ladies and gentlemen, please, thank you very much for listening to my story.